Hello everyone, welcome to another live stream. Yeah, so this one will be focused on the blues, and that image you're seeing above up here is actually generated by a machine learning model, or a couple of machine learning models actually, um, just like last week. Make it a bit smaller so you can see. Yeah, it's a couple of machine learning models. One of them is actually doing the image generation, and the other one is a text-based model where it's basically trying to, I give it a prompt. In this case, I use the harmony of the blues, and it's trying to steer the generative model into drawing something that resembles the harmony of the blues and also piano, harmony of the blues and piano. And I really like what it produced. Yeah. So just test this. Okay, that's working. So yeah, I thought I'd focus on the blues this week as a kind of experiment where the idea is to have something a bit more interactive, hopefully. So please leave comments or questions or corrections if I'm saying something wrong. I am happy to chat about these things. So the blues is really what got me into improvisation. So I grew up as a kid playing piano. It was mostly classical music, which I still play and I love. And I loved rock and roll, and I played guitar with rock and roll, and so I would improvise on guitar, but not really on piano. And it was really the blues, I mean, in guitar, starting with the blues and the pentatonic scale. And then in piano, that's how I started improvising. And when I got to university at McGill, somebody taught me the blues scale on the piano, and that sort of opened up a whole new world for me. And then I eventually got into jazz. I didn't actually like jazz very much at the beginning. Yeah, so what is the blues? So this is, hopefully it's for helpful for people that aren't really musically trained or anything like that. So the blues, I mean, we've all heard it for sure, even if you don't realize that you're hearing the blues. But at its most basic form, I think it really consists of three chords. So if we're in the key of E, which if you play guitar, you know that's one of the first chords you learn is E. So this is what we'd call the one chord, and then we'd go into what we'd call the four chord, which would be A7. And then back to the E, and then we go to the 5 chord, which would be B7. So that's, that sounds bluesy. That's kind of the blues progression. So we're really going between E, A7, back to E, to B7, A7, and E7. And so I hope you can hear me over the piano. But when I say, E is the 1 chord and A is the 4 chord, what I mean is if you're in the key of E, E is the first note, and then you go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth is this A note. And so that's why it's the 4 chord. And so the A7 chord isn't actually in the scale of E7, but the root of that chord, A, is the fourth pitch in the E scale. And then B is the 5th note in that scale. And we play a B7. And again, the B7 chord isn't really part of the E major scale, but that's okay. And so that's kind of the basic blues form. So what's cool about the blues is that it's simple, and so it really gives you a lot of flexibility for things you can do. So obviously, when you're starting to improvise, you might just do the chord tones, which are the 3 notes that make up the chord. So E would be E, G sharp, and B. So you can, if you're just when I'm improvising, I'm really just playing, I was just playing the chord tone. So for E, just E, G sharp and B. For A, just A, C sharp and E. And for B, just B, D sharp and F sharp. Those are what make up the triads. And that's something you could try doing. You can still be very musical even within that limitation. But then you can do funkier stuff, so you can start playing more notes. And here I'm using what are called outside notes. So they don't belong to the scale. So for instance, I was playing this. If you play the E chord and you play this note, it sounds dissonant if I just play it like that. But as a passing note, it can sound really groovy. So that it's called a passing note because you don't really sit on that. You don't stay there. You kind of use it in passing. And so you can use different funkier scales like. So the cool thing about the blues is because it's so recognizable, you can sort of have fun and mess around with the types of scales you use, just because people will still recognize the harmony that's underlying it. So, if you like rock and roll, you've heard tons of blues, different blues tunes. Like Hendrix was amazing at playing blues, Led Zeppelin. And all of these artists got their roots from the original blues artists from the early 20th century. So maybe I'll do a brief improv with the simple blues progression that I was just playing. So just the 1, 4, 5, and then we'll start looking at some other blues forms. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my mic for this. All right, so that was just a small, simple improv over the basic blues progression. One thing I didn't mention that I was using during that improv sometimes is the pentatonic scale. And I alluded to that when I was talking about playing rock and roll and guitar. And so the pentatonic scale for like something like a E blues scale, it would sound something like. So it's called pentatonic, penta, which is Greek for 5 because it has 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you remember what was the first or second MUSICODE video, we talked about heptatonic scales, which are the standard, the major scale that has seven unique pitches. The pentatonic scale has 5 unique pitches. So obviously you don't only have to play those, so you can do the passing note that I was mentioning. One thing that's interesting about the blues is, if you're playing E blues, E7 blues, you have E7 here, which has the G sharp, which is the major third. But you can use the E minor pentatonic scale, which I was just playing. So the E minor pentatonic scale has the minor third of E. But again, you don't want to, if you're playing, the E major 7 here, maybe you don't want to sit too much on that minor third because it might sound a bit dissonant, but that might be what you're after, which is could be also cool. So I'm just trying to monitor the different streaming platforms. So there I was switching from E minor pentatonic when I was on the E. And then now I switched to the A, so I can stay still in the E. But I can also switch to the A minor pentatonic. And when I go to B7, I can go to the B minor pentatonic. Or I can just stay in E minor throughout the whole thing. So that's cool because now you have, when you switch to the A chord, you can play either stick with the E minor pentatonic or go to the A minor pentatonic. Sometimes you might even want to anticipate the B minor pentatonic, so you can, if you're in the A. So you start mixing all these different scale possibilities, and it really the things you can do are endless, and it's really up to your own imagination and creativity, which is what makes the blues so liberating in a sense. And there's like weirder stuff you can do. So you have the E minor pentatonic, but you can to create tension or dissonance, you can play the tritone of that, which would be B flat. The B flat pentatonic. And there's also even the E major pentatonic, which would sound like. So this is E minor pentatonic, and this is E major pentatonic. So you can do that as well. So that's kind of the core of the blues. And so when I started learning jazz, or learning how to improvise on piano, really, that was really fun to do because I was very familiar with the blues, and then I have these patterns, these pentatonic scales that I can play with, and that's really fun. So the next step up, I guess, when you're playing jazz is the I don't know if it's called jazz blues, but I guess so here it's more complicated. There's more chords, there's more movement, which also makes it more fun. So if we're in F, let's switch to F now. So we'll start with F7. So this would be the 1, and now you're going to go to the 4, just like we did in the basic blues. So that would be the B flat 7. and then we come back to F7, and we're going to do what's called a turnaround. So it's almost like you can stay in the F7, but you can do this turnaround where you go to the C minor 7, and then B7, and then, sorry, F7, and then B7, B flat 7, which is again the 4. And then you do this sort of passing note where the root goes up by a semitone. So now instead of having a B flat 7, you have a B diminished 7. So it has this really sort of tense atmosphere to it, where it wants to resolve somewhere, and then you resolve back to the F7, and then what happens is you go the F7 again is the 1, then you go to the 4, which is the B flat 7, and you're going to go down a semitone to A minor 7, and then you go to D7, and then G minor 7, and then C7, and then you're back in F. D7, G minor 7, C7, and then back to F. So that was a lot if you're not familiar with this type of stuff, and if you are, that was probably boring. But what it sounds like when you put it all together and play it in time is something like. So a lot of famous blues songs are using that progression. So maybe I'll play Billy's Bounce later. But if you think about it, you know, I'll stick with the try to make it related to the original blues progression that we had before. So if we start in F, I'll just keep this here, and I'll do the variations here. So we start. Now we're both going to go to the 4, the B flat 7, and then back to the 1. This is going to stay in the F, and I'm going to do the variations here. So this is that turnaround that I mentioned, C minor 7, F, and then back to the 4, the B flat 7. I'm not going to do the semitone up to the B diminished. I do that here, and then we come back to the 1. And I'm going to keep this, the left hand on the 1, and I'm going to do this other funky stuff on the right hand. So we go B flat 7, A minor 7, D, and then we go to the G minor 7, and then to the C, which is the 5. So this one is just like. See, I mean, that doesn't sound super great because they're clashing a little bit, but the idea is that the jazz blues is really, it's coming from the original blues progression. And so when you hear it that way, it starts to become a lot more natural, I guess, especially if you're trying to improvise over that. So, you know, I was talking about turnarounds and things like that. What I mean by turnaround is there are these kind of standard progressions that we use in jazz. The 2-5-1, for instance, is something that you'll always see in jazz. So, for instance, if we're in C major, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, etc. So the 2-5-1 would be 2 is D. So we want to, you know, C major scale is all white notes. So if we just play white notes from D, that gives you a D minor. And we can add the D minor 7 to make it groovier. And then we go to the 5, which would be G. So that would be G major because we're using all white notes. And again, we can add the 7 to make it nicer. And then to the 1. So that has a very, you know, you start here, you go to the 5-7, and it has this tension that it wants to resolve down to that. And so you have that all over the place. So in the blues, you know, you're here. And here we're going to do the 2-5. So we go to, from the 2 becomes the C minor 7. F, now that was originally our tonic, now takes the role of the 5, because we're going to resolve down to the 1, which is the B flat 7, which in the grand scheme of things is actually the 4 of the blues we're playing. And so, you know, for those types of turnarounds, when you're learning jazz, you typically learn little licks that you can learn to play them fast. So for instance, so that, when you do it correctly, that's a pretty famous turnaround, and you'll hear lots of people use that. Yeah, so maybe I'll play, do an improvisation over this this jazz blues progression. I'll do Billy's Bounce by Charlie Parker. And yeah, I'll turn off my mic here. That was Billy's Bounce. For those of you connected that don't know what this is about, all the visualizations you see here are generated based on what I'm playing. So this piano is a high piper, high bestie piper. So one of my daughter's friends is connected, which is always exciting. Yeah, so this piano has a digital interface that can talk to my computer, and that's how, you know, if I play a note here, you see it show up on the screen. A little bit of a lag. When I'm doing these streaming things, the computer can be a little slow. But yeah, so that makes it kind of interesting because whatever you see is sort of happening on the spot. And tonight we're talking about the blues. So that was the jazz blues progression in F, and what I just played was Billy's Bounce. So yeah, I mean, there's lots that I can go through there in terms of different scales being used and that type of thing. But you know, those of us that try to play jazz spend years learning this stuff, so I can't possibly go over it in 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, we'll just continue, talking about different blues progressions. Another kind of famous blues progression in the jazz world is what's called bird blues. Bird like the animal, but it's spelled like the animal, but it's actually referring to Charlie Parker, who's one of the fathers of jazz, I guess, of bebop, really. So he's was a very famous sax player and extremely influential. He's pretty much anybody that plays jazz today, whether you play saxophone or not. You've transcribed or played some of Charlie Parker's solos, and you've definitely played some of his tunes and been inspired by his style. And that tune I just played, Billy's Bounce, was a Charlie Parker tune. And so he had a different blues progression that he played that's kind of neat. So it goes, we're talking about the 1, 4, 1, 5. Sorry, switching scales. 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. So the way this one went was a little different because you start, instead of starting in F7, you start in F major, and then you go to E half diminished, which is E minor with a flat 5, and then A7 flat 9. So we have this B flat here, and then we do this turnaround, the 2-5-1 turnaround on D minor. So D minor, C, and then we go to C minor instead of going to C major, F, and then B7 instead of B major 7. And then this B7 will turn into a B minor 7, and we'll do a turnaround there to E flat 7, and then we go down a semitone instead of full tone, A minor 7 to D7, and then another semitone to A flat minor to D flat 7, and then another semitone down to G minor 7, and then you stay a bit longer there, and then you go to C7, and then back to F7 now, not F major 7, and then you're going to do another turnaround, G minor 7, C, G minor 7, C, and then you start at the beginning. So when you put it all together, it sounds like. Yeah, I don't know any heads off by heart in this one. There's Blues for Alice is a famous one. It's something. Something like that, but you can look it up. Blues for Alice by Charlie Parker. But the important thing is the progression. It's still, when you listen to it, it still sounds kind of bluesy, but I like this one because it has this, I think especially because of all the chromatic movements, it has a kind of nostalgic feeling to it. It's a bit sadder, I find, than standard blues. So. Yeah, so maybe I'll just play a quick improvisation over that progression. It's actually a progression for some reason I haven't played all that much. I actually had to remind myself of the progression today before this live stream. So my apologies if I mess up. But let me just check. I believe there's a comment on Facebook, so I just want to make sure. I'm answering. I can't seem to see it, so it's okay. All right. Oh, Michelle says that sounded great. Thank you. Okay, so I'll do a quick improv over Bird Blues. I'll do it in F again. Okay, so that was Bird Blues. All right, so I mean, these are not the only blues forms out there. There are many other blues forms, but I feel these are kind of the main ones out there, at least that I'm aware of. Yeah, I think the more you listen to them, the more you get familiar with different forms. There's one that, it's a song I had heard many years ago and I really like, but actually my son's guitar teacher started teaching him, and that got me back into the song, and so I was playing it in guitar a lot over the weekends, but today I decided to try to figure it out on piano, because it has the blues form, and it's a very nice song. It's an interesting progression because it doesn't quite fit exactly into that 1/4, 1/5/4 one mold that I was mentioning before. I mean, maybe it does, and I'm just not smart enough to decipher it, but it definitely has that blues form to it. It has that blues nature to it. And so most people know this actually. It's an old tune, but I think the person that made it most popular was Eric Clapton in his Unplugged album. It's called Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. So maybe I'll walk through the progression first. So this one I think is typically played in C. At least that's how I play it. So it starts in C major, then it goes to E 7 and then A7, D minor to A7, D minor over bass in C, F, D7 flat 9 with bass in F sharp, and then C, and then it goes to A7, D7. That's the progression. So I won't try to explain it because I actually, as I said, I haven't really sat down to analyze it. You can definitely hear the blues in it. Actually, now that I'm playing it, I feel like there's some connections with the Bird blues. So maybe either it came from Bird blues or Bird blues came from this progression. I'm not sure. But anyway, maybe I'll play it, and that will be the end of tonight's live stream. Thank you to those of you that connected, and to those of you that are watching this later. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, so here it goes. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. Okay, so I think I'll end it there. Once again, thanks to everyone who connected. I keep saying new MUSICODE episode is coming out, but it's really close this time. I've already filmed myself speaking, and I have the code written, so I just have to record the performance bit of it. And yeah, I'm hoping, I don't think I'll manage this week, but early next week to release it. So thanks for watching again. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you all next week, hopefully.